Yes, so today I am going to talk a little bit about ideal clients. I know some of you know about ideal clients. I have talked about it before, and I've talked about it in my membership. But if you're new to business, this might be a new concept for you and something that you really need to get to grips with, because it is a game changer. It really is a game changer. Basically, the idea is that you know who your ideal client is. Imagine, let's say that you walked into a room that had 100 people in it that all wanted to buy your product, that you could sell your, your wedding cake to. Who would that person be? What would they all be like? What kind of person are they? Who is the typical person who buys what you're best at? And alongside this goes, you've got to not necessarily niche and specialize, but if you try and be everything to everybody, you're going to appeal to nobody. Okay, it's not to say that you can't do every sort of cake, and you can't do birthday cakes, and you can't do, whatever. But if you put all that out on your social media and on your website, when people look at it, they're going to get confused. They're going to think, well, what does this person do? So my website, we'll share websites at some point, actually, because it'd be really useful to see everybody else's. My website is mainly full of cakes like this one you can see behind, these types. That's the sort of typical cake that I do, and I do lots of those, and I specialize in those, and I specialize in sugar flowers. So my website is predominantly full of those images. It's not to say that people don't contact me and ask me for something completely different. Sometimes I'll say yes, sometimes I'll say no. But if someone is looking for a cake like, get me left and right, cake like that, 3-tiered white, some sugar roses on, and they come onto my website and they see almost exactly what they want, they're much more likely to contact me. Okay, in fact, I have had a couple of people contact me and say, I saw this cake on your website, it's exactly what I want, are you free, yada yada yada. If you try and appeal to every person on your website, you're going to end up appealing to nobody. Okay. And that's a really hard concept, isn't it? Because when you say to people, well, who do you want to sell to? The answer generally is, I want to sell to anyone who wants to buy. But if you don't understand who your ideal customer is, first of all, you don't know where to go and find them. I'll talk about that in a second. Secondly, your messaging can get mixed. And the way you talk on social media can get mixed as well. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. If you have a really strong idea about the ideal person that will buy your wedding cake, or the ideal couple, if you like, then you're much more likely to get through to them. So, for example, oh, Amber's here. Hello, Amber. See, I can see, this tells me who's watching as well. That's nice. Hello. So, for example, I put my prices up at the end of last year, and now am appealing for the higher end, or middle to higher end. I mean, we're not talking thousands, we're talking, £500, £600, £700 a wedding cake. And I know that if I, for example, advertise on Facebook Marketplace, I'm not going to get anyone who is going to be prepared to pay £700 for a wedding cake. But on the other hand, I know that people who shop at Waitrose are much more likely to want to pay £700 for a wedding cake. So consequently, at the beginning of the year, I was contacted by a magazine who supplies to Waitrose and Marks and Spencer, and it's a wedding magazine. And so I've taken an advert out in that, because I know that my ideal client will be reading that. Okay. I've had a few bits of PR over the last year. and I'm looking at PR, getting in the papers and the magazines and that kind of thing. And I'm in a PR membership with a friend of mine, and occasionally calls come up. Does anyone want to be in this, feature in this article? We're looking for people who do this. We're looking for people who do that. And I know, because I've done work on who my ideal client is, that my ideal client is going to be someone who perhaps reads Woman and Home or Good Housekeeping, possibly Prima, those kinds of magazines. They're not necessarily going to be reading things like The Sun. And this isn't sort of prejudicial of me. It's just knowing where my ideal customers are going to be. There was I saw something a couple of months ago on someone's Facebook or Twitter or wherever it was I was. Someone asked Lamborghini, the company Lamborghini, the really high-end cars, why don't you ever advertise on TV? And their answer was, people who buy Lamborghinis don't watch TV. It's as simple as that. So if you think of, I'm always going on about Lidl and Harrods, or Lidl and Fortnum and Masons, and you've got all the other supermarkets sort of in the middle, sort of Waitrose is sort of, going towards the higher end market, isn't it? So, you have people who are Lidl customers, and you have people who are Waitrose customers, and you have people who are really high end Fortnum and Mason. And generally, it's not to say that people who shop in Waitrose don't pop into Lidl for things. It doesn't mean it's the other way around. It doesn't mean that people who shop at Fortnum and Mason don't pop into Waitrose and Lidl. It just means that generally those companies aim their marketing and aim what they do at that particular ideal customer. I mean, it's a well-known strategy in marketing, and all these companies, all the famous companies that you can think of, Marks and Spencer's and all the high street shops, Currys, all these firms have a really good idea who their demographic is, who they are aiming at, how old they are, whether they're married, whether they've got children, what kind of TV programs they watch, if they watch TV, what kind of magazines and newspapers they read, all those things. And they aim their advertising at those people. Okay. And this is what we need to do when we're trying to market our wedding cakes. So I'm aiming for, say, the Waitrose customer, possibly even Fortnum and Masons, although I probably wouldn't go that high, if you like. But I'm not going to write on my social media, "Hi guys, how's it hanging?" Because my ideal customer doesn't talk like that, and doesn't, that would alienate them. So I have, I'm me when I'm on social media, and sometimes I do daft things and sometimes I'm a bit mischievous. But when it comes to, writing on my website and, sales posts and images of my cakes, I try to keep it quite classic. I try to keep it quite elegant. I try to keep it quite eye-catching. I don't necessarily have, I don't know, off the top of my head, me doing something daft with one of my wedding cakes, or my wedding cake being in somewhere unusual. Whereas if you were someone who specialized in, I don't know, off the top of my head, Gothic type cakes, the punk type cakes. I know that there are bakers who specialize in that kind of thing, and you go onto their website and it's full of beautiful, dark images and skulls, and the corset look. I know there's someone in here, I think it's Nicola, who's got a beautiful dummy cake that's dark, and I think it's dark purple or dark red and black. And someone who is gothicy punky and wants that style of wedding, they're going to look at that image and go, yes, that's exactly what I want. And they're going to go, they're going to look at your website and they're going to contact you, and so on and so forth. You might have customers that are looking more for, contemporary style. I mean, I've got my square cake up there, but that's not that contemporary. I mean, we're talking the sort of concrete cake, or something really, really different. And there'll be couples that's what they're looking for. They're looking for something different. They're looking for something really contemporary. And they will look mainly on Instagram and Pinterest, because that's where people look for images. And as soon as they see something that they think is ideal to them, that is where they're going to go in and investigate further. If they then go to the website and they find that the picture that they loved is a tiny little picture on the end of something and they can't find anything else that they like, then they're not going to be that interested. But if they go onto that website and find that there's loads of images that really appeal to them, and this person obviously understands what they want in a wedding cake, they are going to go move forward and contact and engage with that wedding cake baker. So, and think about wedding fairs as well. I know that a lot of you either have been to wedding fairs or you're thinking of going to wedding fairs. Don't try to appeal to everybody. This is the message that I keep being told in all the trainings and all the courses that I've done. Don't appeal to everybody. So think about yourself as a customer. Think about yourself as someone getting married, for example, and you go to a wedding fair and there's one wedding cake baker that's got a contemporary, a Gothic, an elegant, perhaps 5 or 6 really different type cakes. You might go and you might think, oh, they're quite nice. Yeah, that one's okay. Yeah, that one. But if you see another cake maker and they've got 5 cakes of a very similar style, but different cakes, obviously you wouldn't have exactly the same one. So for example, if I had my sugar paste cakes and I had different examples of that, and that was the cake they were after, they'd come to me. They wouldn't go to the other cake maker who had lots of different examples, even if one of the ones that they wanted looked quite nice. They'd go for the cake maker that seems to really get what they're after. I hope that makes sense. It doesn't mean you'll necessarily lose customers, although in a certain way you will, but you want to attract the right ones to you. Let me give you another example, a non-cake related example. This was something I was told to make me understand ideal clients, and it's quite good. Imagine that you've got a headache, and it's right at the front of your head, and it's perhaps going down to your ears, and it's really, really bad. And you want to go into the chemist and get some headache pills. Okay. So you come across 3 types of headache tablet. One says, this will cure your headaches. And that's the cheapest one. The next one says, this will tackle painful headaches. Okay, and that's a bit more expensive. The third one says, this one will get rid of your headache that's at the front of your head and down to your ears. I know it wouldn't, but go with me on this one. You're going to choose that one because it is exactly what you are wanting. It is exactly what you are after to solve your problem. Even if it was double the price of the cheaper one, you'd buy that one because it is telling you that it will do exactly what you are after. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. It is quite a difficult concept to get hold of because your instinct tells you that you don't want to push away anybody. You don't want to push away customers. But think of it this way. If you're trying to appeal to everybody, as I've said before, you're going to end up pushing everybody away because there's no one's going to think, oh, that's exactly what I need, this person. They're all going to go, that's nice, and go and find someone else. Yeah. You want people to look at your social media and your website and go, that is exactly the type of cake that I want for my wedding. I want this person to do my wedding cake. Okay. I think I saw some questions on here. Hang on. Right. Hang on. I get the idea, Annie, but what if the couples don't know what they want? Isn't it a good idea to give them? Yes, absolutely. But they will have an idea. They will have a general sense of the type of cake that they want. The chances are that the bride in particular, grooms in my experience, not so much. Those of you who are experienced will know this. The bride, even before she's got engaged, she will have been looking at wedding things. She will have been looking at Pinterest. She will have been looking at wedding dresses, venues, even before she knew she was getting married. So she has started to get an idea of the kind of cake she wants. Yeah. No, they might not have narrowed it down exactly to something like this, but they'll know that they're not wanting anything black, or they're not wanting anything gothic, or I keep saying gothic, it's the only thing I can think of, or they're not wanting a sort of concrete cake, or they're not wanting one of those upside down hanging cakes. So they don't exactly know, but when they look at you, they go, oh, yes, this is, I love this. This is exactly what I want. Okay, this type of cake. So it's sort of appealing to their general nature, if you like. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I've had 2 ideal customers so far, and always seem to be the older ladies going into their second marriage. Yes, yes. That is sort of a different kind of customer, isn't it? Older, more mature, don't want all the frou-frou necessarily. They want something a bit more classic, a bit more simple, because they've possibly done the big wedding. They want something simpler this time round, probably. Yeah. Hang on, there was another question here. Do you do, but this is a good question. Do you do buttercream and fondant sugar paste, or stick to what you focus on? I know there are some bakers, some wedding cake bakers, some very successful ones that specialize in one or the other. I do both at the moment. Do you know, I don't know whether I prefer one or the other. I think I prefer sugar paste. But I get asked for a lot of semi-naked or buttercream covered cakes, because you can say my style is quite classic and elegant, and you can do that with buttercream. I think you need to keep your options open with sugar paste and buttercream if you do both. And then you'll find out which one you prefer. And if you decide that there's one you really prefer and you just want to do that one, then go for that one. Have all your websites, you know, I'm a buttercream cake maker, that kind of thing, because it does work, but you've got to do it carefully, and you've got to be careful doing it. Okay. What I wouldn't suggest you do, and I know some bakers do this, I would get yourself good at both. If you're not good at one or the other, practice and get good at them, because what you don't want to give the impression to any couple, oh, I'm no good at that. You don't want to give that impression at all, because they don't want someone who's, you know, they want someone who's proficient. Yeah. So if you don't like sugar paste, for example, and it doesn't work for you and you're not happy with it and all that kind of stuff, I would suggest you really spend some time getting to grips with it, because the more you know it and the more you can use it, and you will be at an advantage. Okay, it just I know it's contrary to what I've been saying, but it does widen your horizons a little bit. It does widen your possibilities a little bit. I hope that makes sense. I'm contradicting myself, aren't I? But I hope that makes sense. Was there another question? Hang on. I've got a feeling all my questions are in a different order. Oh no, I think that's it. Oh, you're very welcome. I hope it all makes sense. So it was a really difficult concept when I first found out about ideal clients. It was like, what? But I want to appeal to anyone. I want anyone to be able to buy my cakes. But once you really get into it, you realize just how useful it can be, mainly because you can then go to the places, as I was saying earlier, you can then go to the places where that type of client will be. Say the type of magazines that you advertise in, if you advertise in magazines, the type of wedding fairs you go to. Don't think that all wedding fairs are going to be ideal for you, because they might not be. Yeah, they might not be. The type of customer that is ideal for you, there are certain wedding fairs. I've been to certain wedding fairs. I thought, oh, blimey, no, this really isn't, you know, where I'm wanting to go at all. So I haven't done wedding fairs for ages, actually. Lockdown and one thing and another. But I would perhaps only do them at, you know, stately homes, castles, those type of things. Those type of venues are where my ideal client wants to get married. Yeah. How do you decide on your ideal client? Think about the type of cake that you really love to make. If you're new at this, if you're new in wedding cakes, it might take you a little bit of time, because what you want to end up doing is making cakes that you absolutely love making. There's no point in getting niched into a type of cake that you think, oh, no, I've got to make another one of these. I hate doing these. You don't want to go there. You want to concentrate on the type of cake you love doing. For example, I love making sugar flowers. So I have lots of sugar flower things on my website. I talk about sugar flowers a lot. I do those time lapses of sugar flowers, those kind of things. And so consequently, people generally, you know, come to me if they want sugar flowery things. And then from that, I think about, you need to think about your price point as well. We'll talk about pricing another day, because that's quite a long, long thing, isn't it? But you need to think about the sort of price range that you want to attract. I would always recommend that you perhaps go slightly higher than budget, because you're going to make more of a profit that way. But you might decide that actually you want to help out ideal clients that haven't got a lot of money and they want a beautiful wedding, but they're on a budget. So you might decide to you know, perhaps focus on semi-naked buttercream cakes, because they're generally, you know, less expensive to make. Although butter, you need to take a mortgage out for a thing of butter now, don't you? And yeah, so you're thinking about your price point. So are you aiming at customers that would buy at Tesco, or would they buy at Waitrose, say, or would they buy at Fortnum and Mason? And it's the kind of person, I mean, it depends on the type of person you can communicate easily with as well. I hope that makes sense. So I wouldn't want to go too high end, because I wouldn't want to be dealing with people who, you know, who earn $1 million a year and expect people to do things at the drop of a hat for them, because that's their expectation. I wouldn't want to be working for people like that. That's, you know, that doesn't appeal to me at all. But I do aim, you know, all my marketing and my, you know, my thoughts and all that kind of stuff is aimed at perhaps a couple. They're both employed, they've both got fairly good jobs, perhaps they're I don't know, teachers or solicitors or in IT, that kind of thing. So they've got a fair, decent budget to spend on a wedding cake, you know. And yeah, they might shop at Waitrose, Marks and Spencer's, those sort of higher, slightly higher end places. I hope that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense. But just have if you're new to it, whether you've not started your business yet or you've just started your business, it needs to be something that you just need to have a think about. Think about the types of cakes that you love to make. Think about the type of price point. By the way, just one caveat with pricing. and I've said this a few times, and I did a reel on it a while back. Don't start, when you start selling your wedding cakes, don't think, oh, I'll start pricing low and then I can increase my prices later. Because what you will then do is you will appeal to people that are wanting a budget cake. And then when you want to increase your prices, you have to almost get yourself a new audience of people that want higher priced cakes. We'll talk about pricing another time, shall we? But don't price low because you are new. Price properly, price for a profit. Okay. People that are buying a wedding cake don't really care that you haven't made any before. What they care about is that they're going to get a decent wedding cake, and you're going to make sure they get a decent wedding cake because you're going to know what you're doing. That's as simple as that, isn't it? It's as simple as that. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you don't let on that you don't know what you're doing. The art of the bluff, you see. And that's what this group is for. So if you're not sure what you're doing, you come into this group and you go, help, I need help doing this, that, and the other. And we'll all go, yes, this is what you need to do. And then you can exude confidence to your clients. That's the thing, you see. You've got to, if you don't know what you're doing, you pretend you know what you're doing, and then you find out how to do what you want to be doing. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So we better leave it there. I'm going to go and see my parents this afternoon. Bless them. They live up in Kent. I know a couple of you are sort of East Sussex, Kent based, aren't you? I'm diddling about the countryside this afternoon. So there we go. Any questions about that? Anything that's not quite clear? Oh, it does make a lot of sense. Oh, good. I'm glad it does. Any questions on it or any queries following this, then do post in the group. I'm more than happy to answer it, although, you know, I'm not an expert on it, but I have done quite a bit of work on it, and I've talked to lots of people about it and that kind of thing. So so there we go. Next week, I'm not sure what we'll talk about next week. Perhaps I'll ask in the group what you would find most useful next week. I'll put a little thread up, and you can tell me what you'd like me to chat about next week. I'm more than happy to do that. Okay. Oh, you're very welcome, Morgan. Oh, hang on. Oh, would you be able to do a week on pricing and a week on social media? Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I've got pricing down here. And social media. Yeah, that's a good one. Let me write it down in my little book. Yeah. Perhaps I could do pricing next week, possibly. Yeah. Let's do a session on pricing next week. There we go. I'm not sure what time it'll be. I'll let you know, because I know I've got a meeting with someone at 9, I think, and I'm not sure how long that will go on for. But I'll put it in the group. Yeah, let's talk about pricing next week. And if there's anything else ever you think, oh, it'll be really useful to get some input from Annie on that, just pop it in the group and I'll write it. Look, I've got a list. Look, I've got a list of things that I know you'll find useful. So there we go. So I hope that's been useful. As I say, do ask any questions. I'm sure there are experienced people in here that would be able to answer as well as me. So do pop any questions that you have in there, and about anything else. And yes, let us know what you're doing over the weekend. If you're doing any weddings or wedding fairs or anything, do share what you're doing, because it's really lovely to see what you're all up to. All right. Okie dokie then, my lovelies. I will leave you there. Have a lovely weekend. Have a lovely Friday. And I'll see you in the group, but I will also see you next Friday at some point. All right then, take care. See you soon.